Okay friends, so I'm about ready to show you how to make the easiest Yule Log Cake that I could find. And there's many different recipes out there on the internet on how to make Yule Log Cakes. But yeah, this was the easiest one I could find. And what you need is you're going to need a box of the Betty Crocker's Super Moist Devil Food Cake Mix. However, you are not going to make this according to the directions on its box. You're going to make it according to the directions on the Betty Crocker website. Okay? Alright, so the first thing we have to do is we have to crack 6 eggs into this big bowl. Alright, so this is number 6 right here. Alright. Now I can take those eggs and dump them into my larger bowl. Alright. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix these eggs at very high speed for about 5 minutes. Now, the reason I whipped the eggs that long is because as you whip them, they get thicker. I don't know if you can see how thick those eggs have gotten. Okay, so you want your eggs to be thick. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the cake mix. And like I said, I'm adding the Betty Crocker Super Moist Devil Food Cake. Alright, so I'm going to add this powder. Whoops. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Alright. And then I'm going to add my 1/4 cup of oil. Okay. And then I'm going to add the 1/2 cup of water. Now, like I said, you're following the recipe according to how the Yule Log Cake is made, not according to the box recipe. Alright, so now I'm going to stir all that together. Make sure that you mix the cake powder, the water, and the oil thoroughly together. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this into what they call a jelly roll pan. And what a jelly roll pan is it's sort of like a cookie sheet, a large cookie sheet that has 1-inch sides. Okay? So, and I have put down a sheet of wax paper on top of my jelly roll pan, and then I'm going to spray that wax paper on top with some cooking spray, and then on top of that I'm going to put a little bit of powder, a little bit of flour. Okay, now to get your flour evenly coated on this, it'd be better if you were doing this over the sink. I don't know if you can see this. I just tap it and that will send it to each corner of the cookie sheet. All right, so see? Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, not the whole bowl, but 4 cups of this mixture and pour it onto my jelly roll pan to make a very thin cake. All right, so here we go. 1, 2, and just depending a little bit on the size of your pan, you may have to adjust, you may have to add a little bit more or a little bit less. All right, now, you're probably thinking, what are we going to do with the rest of that cake mixture? Well, we're just going to make some cupcakes. No use wasting it. So I've already got my liners in my cupcake pan. All right, and I will make about 8 extra cupcakes. 8. All right. Now, I have already preheated my oven before I even started cooking. So I forgot to tell you that. Preheat your oven at 375. Okay? And then now we're to this stage. Okay, so we're going to put this into the stove for 14 to 16 minutes approximately. All right. And you can go ahead and put your cupcakes in at the same time. Okay. All right, and I'm going to set my timer for 14 minutes. I always set it for the lowest minutes first, and then I can readjust. So timer 14 minutes. And I actually only set mine for a minute less, 13 minutes. That gives me a minute to kind of get in here and look. Okay, there we go. All right, so we'll be back in 13 minutes to check out the cake and finish the process. I should clean my oven out. Okay, so it is finished. It's ready to come out. All right, and the reason I know it's finished is because whenever I gently touch it, it does what they call bouncing back. All right? Okay, so I'm going to set that up there. And now I'm going to check the cupcakes. See if they are finished through. And yes, I don't know if you guys know how to check a cake to make sure it's finished, but you just take a fork or a toothpick and you stab it in the middle. And if it comes out clean with no cake to it, then that means it's finished, just cooked all the way through. If I had pulled my fork out and there had been cake on the fork, then obviously I would know I had to leave it in there for a little bit longer. Okay, but the cake, or the cupcakes are finished. Okay. Now, back to the towel. I had laid out a clean towel. And on top of that clean towel, I'm going to be sprinkling some powdered sugar. Alright, so I have my powdered sugar evenly dispersed onto my towel. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cake while it is still hot. And I'm going to flip the cake over onto this towel. Okay. And then you lift the pan up. There you go. If anybody's ever made a pumpkin roll, this process probably looks pretty familiar. Okay, and then I'm going to peel off the wax paper. All right. All right, now while the cake is still hot, I'm going to roll it. You want to do this, you want to roll this while the cake is hot, because then that way it develops a shape, and you just roll the towel up in with it, okay? So you start at the small end and you just start rolling the towel, and the cake goes with it. Now if I remember making the pumpkin rolls, I was thinking that I had used a damp towel, but this recipe did not call for a damp towel. So I just roll my cake up like that, okay? And then I'm going to let it sit here, rolled up, to cool for about an hour, okay? And then I'll be back. Okay, friends, so it's been about an hour and my cake has cooled off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unroll the cake, okay? And I'm going to take my vanilla frosting and I'm going to frost the cake. Alright, so there we go. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to re-roll the cake. Okay, and if you can see, it is looking like a log. Can you see that log? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lay it there on my platter. Alright, so there is my Yule Log Cake, but it's not finished because I am going to now cover it with chocolate icing. Okay, and people kind of get a little bit fancy with these to really make them look like logs. And so one of the things I could do is, you know how sometimes logs will have like branches coming off or little knots coming off? Okay, so what I could do is I could take my cupcake here and using some of the icing as glue, I can stick that coming off the side of my log as so. Yeah. Alright, and I am using Betty Crocker vanilla for the inside and Betty Crocker chocolate fudge for the bark on the outside. Alright, and then after you have it iced the way that you want it, then you just take your knife and you just make little squigglies going down the side of it. And those little squigglies is supposed to make it, help to make it look like a log with bark on the outside of it. I'll show you a close-up. And it is supposed to be representative of the Yule logs that they would burn in honor of the 12 days of Christmas.